What up, y'all? It's T-Tar, and today we're going to be talking about Pokemon Legends ZA, of course, but something interesting, which is the logo. See, this is kind of a variation of what I was talking about last time, which is that they could introduce new legendaries in this to counterpart Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde. It's a pretty important idea, but you can watch it after this. But there's a spin you can put on the idea if you look closely at these logos. What's really going on here if you look? So alongside Pokemon, first off, for some reason they put the logo on the right instead of underneath like Legends Arceus. But look, so we have the Z, right? And the Z is obviously in Zygarde's style with the hexagons, the green color. And then you have the hyphen in the same style as the Z. But behind it, you've got the A in this very odd pattern. And you've got these like, what looks like roots or something. What is the A is the question. And it only takes staring at this for a couple of minutes or just seconds before you realize we've all seen that somewhere, right? I'll show you a photo rather than me saying it. I think it'll hit harder. And when I realized this, there was something completely different that came to mind. Now, I could be wrong about this, but tell me, that is what the A is, right? But for some reason, the A is opened downward rather than upward, which is how the ultimate weapon is. Go back to the logo. That really looks like the ultimate weapon. Oh yeah, come on. Actually, see, instead of it being opened, it's actually just expanding out because that's the shape of the ultimate weapon. Marus, that's what it is. So the logo, this is big, has incorporated the ultimate weapon into it. The ultimate weapon is a core piece of the story. And this is when we get into my theory for this video, which is a spin on what we were talking about last time. It's that these games, the focus of them is something odd for Kalos, but it's something natural, which is Zygarde, versus something artificially made like the weapon, which is the ultimate weapon. The clash between the natural and the man-made. Pokemon Legends ZA. And the reason for this theory initially arrives when you look at the trailer they showed, right? What a weird teaser. First off, that was a teaser trailer, right? Not an actual trailer with gameplay. It's kind of like when they first told us the titles of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. But the stuff they showed in the teaser were weird. It started off showing a lot of futuristic stuff. Wire mesh patterns. When we're watching the Pokemon Presents together, the idea floated by our mind. A Legends game in the future because of how 3D everything was looking. In fact, let me pull it up. You see this? You got this closed file that says confidential. The layout of it looks very older. The papers and this outline for some plan for the city. But it starts off showing you this outline, right? Something is censored, which we know is Lumios. Look at that. It's all sketches for what we know to be Lumio City. So this is before Lumio City is made. These are the sketches they're making for their vision. They've drawn people too. And then it converts over to this whole 3D wire mesh of the city. This is not how it would have looked like if you're sketching out the city. So they shift to some futuristic viewpoint here. Come on, nothing about this gives you the same vibes as like Legends Arceus with the very old village. And then the trailer ends off going all the way back to the outline on the papers. So there's some weird taste of the future in this teaser trailer. And let's look at how they make the logo. So first the Z appears. Damn, that it just fades in the ultimate weapon. And so let's talk about this now, right? The idea of something natural versus something man-made. Because this was not the theme of the original X and Y game, right? What even was the theme of the original X and Y game? It was just Lysander who wanted to do some crap. Oh wow. Director Junichi Matsuda revealed the three main themes of X and Y to be beauty, bonds, and evolution. Okay, makes sense. Both in-game with bonding and mega evolving your Pokemon, but also the evolution of Pokemon, I'd imagine. But this was not the theme of the original X and Y. But there is something odd about X and Y. Listen to this, right? There's this ancient war happening with Pokemon being sent out to fight physically, right? They have to use their Pokemon moves on the enemies and all. And then one day, AZ's Floette dies. And so in this natural war, what does AZ do? But build a freaking machine and bring his Floette back. Doesn't that just come out of nowhere? That in the midst of all this organic battle that seems to be happening, if you look at what's portrayed in X and Y's depiction of the ancient war, everything's very natural. Then AZ just shows up with essentially like a rocket launcher. So even if you take away what I just said about it being potentially based off the logo, man-made versus natural, that always was there. The whole idea that AZ pulled up with a weapon. And now that we got the weapon there, it makes it feel more like it's the forefront. What they teased back in the first games is now on the forefront. Man-made versus natural. And so now we're going to take a spin on this with the idea I was saying last time. So Xerneas, Yveltal, Zygarde, if they make a counterpart where it's the A, B, and C legendary. The A would be Zygarde's counterpart. You'd be counting backwards. So the A would be a Pokemon as strong as Zygarde, and they fought at some point. Now we're just going to paint a story. What I was saying last time is this idea that we have the ABC group, and they fight with the XYZ group for the same power that only one side can have at a time. So the A is this chaos Pokemon that had all the hexagonal powers. The B had the powers of death, and then the C had the power of life. And then at some point a battle happened, let's say around 800 years ago, because this is when in game it said that it's weird what's said in game. It said there's like a certain NPC that you can talk to somewhere. It might be in Anastar City, and if you talk to him in Pokemon X, he says something like it's believed 800 years ago when Xerneas had to go to sleep that this sudden disappearance caused the Forest and all to lose life. You know, it's like a myth, right, about Xerneas, a story that'd be passed down. So this is what they think happened. So because Xerneas is always providing life and all that, the moment it went to sleep and turned into a tree, the forest lost that source of life and it withered out. But if you talk to the same dude in Y, he says it said 800 years ago, Yveltal, to gain the energy it needed to go into hibernation, sucked everything dry. And then it went to sleep, and that's why everything's withered away. So you have two different stories, right? And this is why it makes me think it's just a myth, and that will really happen to be something else. But yeah, I was saying something like, let's say 800 years ago, the XYZs fought the ABCs. And this is the main danger that Zygarde is always on alert for. And so that's why he doesn't interfere with all the obvious dangers we see in the various different Pokemon games, right? Especially the Paradox Pokemon next door. He's always specifically looking out for A, because that is like some kind of specific catastrophic Pokemon that has endangered the environment before. So let's say 800 years ago, these two have fought, and the XYZ team is the one that wins and pulls out their powers. So the ABC loses the hexagon powers for A, the death powers for B, and the life powers for C. Now they're very weakened, and now the winning team is these three. And then they go to sleep after that long battle. And so this is what really happened around 800 years ago that people have interpreted in different ways when they tell the stories. So that's kind of the theme that I was saying, right? That these two are fighting. And so since now we've built on the idea that AZ pulled up with like a rocket launcher back in the days, what if what the ABCs actually are not natural Pokemon? What if 3,000 years ago, what was really going on in Kalos and in this war is something that was natural versus natural? Fam, that was like a meteor. But anyhow, is something natural versus artificial? What if that's actually what the ancient war was about? And maybe the other side are the ones that had the artificial, and they don't have to explain what the other side was. In fact, it could be a Kalos war within itself, two different sides. So it could be you had the natural side fighting this like mechanical side, right? And AZ was part of the natural side, but the moment his Floet died, that he went over to the natural side to build the ultimate weapon, bring his Floet back, then destroy everything. Everything being two sides within Kalos itself. So this isn't talking about Poly or Galar. It's more simple to think of everything that's contained within Kalos. And so what if what the A, B, and C really are these like artificially created Pokemon? Stuff that is in the same vein as the ultimate weapon. And this, I know it's weird to think, because you did not think this kind of theme was supposed to exist in X and Y. And then especially since we just got done with this whole past and future crap with Scarlet and Violet, you wouldn't think they would do it again, but maybe it's intended that this comes after Scarlet and Violet in that sense. Besides, natural and artificial is not the same thing as the savage past and the perfect bodied future. It's just reminiscent of them. And you know, it's hard to tell where the power that Zygarde has as the ordered Pokemon and where the life and death powers may have come from. And so let's just go off the idea that it originally did belong to Zygarde, Yveltal, and Xerneas. Even though it's teasing with the idea that maybe A, B, and C are the real good ones, let's get rid of that for now. Let's say they're the bad ones. What if this other side to Kalos, and Zygarde, Xerneas, and Yveltal, they're just sleeping, right? They created weapons to harness and steal the powers of Zygarde, Yveltal, and Xerneas. So they had this creation to be able to blast off the life energy, the death energy, and then maybe something that could withstand Zygarde's overwhelming power to be its own entity. And that's what the ABCs are. Because you gotta think, if AZ could pull up with that technology, it existed somewhere. Somewhere there's an engineer-ass group of people who were able to make these crazy inventions. Inventions that seemingly were never made again for the next 3,000 years, right? It's not like they would make another ancient weapon. They had to go and dig out the same ancient weapon, Lysander, right? And so it seems like after AZ blew everything up, that he also blew up all the technology that existed at that point. But maybe that's what the A, B, and C could be. And so that's why the logo would be like this. Zygarde-A, but the A is reminiscent of the ultimate weapon, and it's Zygarde natural versus the artificial. And not to make the other side sound robotically like the future Pokemon, because that sounds boring, especially if you want to joke around with this idea and say that AZ just went to the other side to steal some of their technology. You can imagine this is some prototype ass thing he made, and that the actual creatures that, I mean, they did show parts of the War White, right? They did show it was natural on both ends. But you know, Game Freak's always building on their stories, so maybe they could just add that it was actually a bigger fight going on than just what they showed. But yeah, it could be something like, even though they're artificial, that it's not as artificial as robots. It could even be, remember, Mewtwo is an artificial Pokemon. Silvally is an artificial Pokemon. It could even be to that extent. Because I think it'd be cool if this is really what the logo is trying to portray, which is man-made versus, or there's a better word for this, synthetic. If the real theme they're trying to do here is natural versus synthetic, then it'd be cool that the synthetic side doesn't actually look inferior and is actually Mewtwo-like perfected creatures that counterpart Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde. And you don't actually know which one would technically be better. You gotta think, right? As weird as all I've been saying sounds, think all the way back to this logo. Why is the logo like this? Why is the ultimate weapon on the logo? As far as I know, there isn't anything in-game that would contradict the idea that maybe someone dug out the ultimate weapon a couple hundred years ago. Whenever this game takes place, we don't know. They're not gonna make this game take place 3,000 years ago, right? But yeah, let's say if this was like Legends Arceus and this takes place a couple hundred years ago, I don't think there's anything that would contradict the idea that someone might have dug it out early before it got buried again. But especially to be in the logo like this, it's like it plays a role as pivotal as what I was describing. Or, you know, since what I was saying last time might be a bit confusing, how there's only like one power of the hexagon power, the life and the death that they fight over, maybe both of them have the same power. And it's not like they take it from the other side and back and forth. They both have the power and fight whenever somehow the other side is brought back. Again, I think it's the hyphen that most messes with me. Because, you know, another title that would have looked good is like Pokemon AZ. If you rearrange this, that kind of looks like a decent title. It looks better than it sounds. But the hyphen makes it sound like they are to be separated. Like it's Z versus A. I can't get past that notion in my head. So that's why I've been making these theories. But that's my thoughts. Y'all let me know in the comments. Do you think that makes sense? This man-made versus artificial theme that wasn't originally the main focus in X and Y, but always did linger. I mean, it is funny if you just zoom out and think about it. In the middle of a natural war, he brought a machine. And this machine is quite literally never expanded upon. Aside from, and we didn't even get to touch on this in this video, the birth of Mega Evolution, which, go to the synthetic side. Doesn't Mega Evolution sound like something synthetic, like exactly in the vein of Mewtwo? Not the future Paradox Robotic-y, but something synthetic where you mess with the genes of Pokemon to be able to further evolve them. And then why, however Mewtwo ended up getting his Mega Stones in the modern games, why it was so easy that Mewtwo was compatible and someone was able to make Mega Stones for him. But yeah, it doesn't explain right where Mega Stones come from. It actually makes sense that this side of the story, this synthetic side with the weapon that seemed to have birthed Mega Stones, that it all does point to something synthetic. Anyhow, y'all let me know your thoughts. I will make a new video on Mega Evolution and stuff, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. It's still crazy that Kalos is back right now, and this is really what we're talking about.